query parameters or request parameters. So what is a query parameters? What are the purpose of query parameters again? Generally, query parameters are defined as part of the URI path. Query parameters defined as part of the query string. Query string is combination of query parameters. The multiple whenever you have many query parameters, the combination of the overall query parameters will be called as query string, the entire string. So query string is always started by the question mark symbol. So so that you are going to append always at the end of the URI path. At the end of the URI path. So why we are using query parameters again? What is the purpose? Again, exchanging information or sending request information to the server application. From client to server, client would like to send some information to the server. To send information from client to server, like similar to path variables only. Like path variables also, why we are using? For sending information from client to server. I want to send dilip@gmail.com from client application to backend application or our Spring Boot application. So then, what is the ways we know? Request body, one way we know. But is it required in this case? Request body. Request body is all about a JSON payload, a Pojo class. So you have to take care of so many things. But in this case, I'm just sending only one value, dilip@gmail.com, and that is also a public information. And based on that, I'm trying to get data or maybe delete the data or update the data. So in this case, the resource identifier is email ID. So I'm just sending to the client application, server application from the client. So that information we are exchanging or we are sending via path variable concept. Now in query parameters also same concept. By using query parameters, what we are doing? What is the ultimate result? What is the ultimate action we are doing by using query parameters? Sending information only, right? City equal to Hyderabad, gender equal to male, brand equal to Apple, storage equal to 256 GB. So what is this information? This is all a client information or not. Based on this, you are sending this information to the server application. That means our Spring Boot application. That means our REST API from the front end point of view or whatever it is. Now what server application is doing? It is processing the data based on these filter values. Based on these values, it is reading the values, and based on those values, whatever the logic we implemented in the REST service level, so that logic will be executed and you are going to get the response back to the client or not. So finally here query parameters also using for the purpose of sending information from client to server only. Same purpose here also. But what is the real difference between path variables and query parameters? When we have to go for path variables, when we have to go for query parameters. So by using query parameters and path variables, we can achieve common requirement, we can achieve same requirement. Okay, by using path variables also, I got data from the users table based on the city and gender. Like that, two information I am passing as part of the path variable. One is city, second one is gender value. Similarly, by using query parameter also, we are passing city and gender value, Hyderabad and female. Then both are in this case also or in this case also, client sending same information. Maybe approaches are different. One approach is path variable, one approach is query parameters. But ultimately, you are sending the data to server application is same data or not. Finally, I am getting Hyderabad and gender values, like city value and gender value. Based on that, I return my logic. I return my REST service logic and I am processing and I am giving it to you. But how you are sharing information? Few people are sharing their via path variables. Some other person chosen what? Query parameters. Some other person send it as a request body also. But ultimately what I am receiving only two values, right? So that means client sending information to the server application by using path variables and query parameters. In this case, as a request identifiers. But when we have to choose path variables, when we have to choose query parameters. So generally, path variables are going to be used for the required or mandatory values. So that value should be presented. For example, in this case, I given you requirement. For example, assume localhost colon double line, and I will give you before that in Flipkart point of view categories. Assume I have a lot of categories in my application. I define mobiles, home appliances, Okay, laptop, something like that. Grocery, whatever it is. Okay, so you have, assume you have like almost 100 categories like this in your Flipkart website. But generally, whenever you log into the Flipkart, what is happening? Flipkart.com. It's a home page. After that, what you are seeing, for example, if you are clicking on the front end, mobiles, the category is adding as what? Mobiles, right? So that means in this case, I'm giving path variable. So do I need to give like category? So which is the best approach now? Tell me. First one or second one? Definitely first one. Because first of all, I should get something always. Okay, that means maybe if I click on the mobiles, category has to replace with the, generally it will be replaced by the mobiles. So that is how front end team will write down the logic. We implemented REST service like this, or we are trying to understand how to implement a REST service based on this requirement. So we have decided, now we are confused whether I have to go with path variables or query parameters. So first thing is, straightforwardly, whenever user clicking on the mobiles, he has to see all the mobiles. Then that means a category is always required or not. If you want to see some results, a category is always required or not. Yes. Now another person clicked on the laptops. So then category will be replaced with the request is going as laptops. The value is going as, category value is going as laptops. But at the same time, and after that I given one more requirement. Okay, once user selected the mobiles or any category, apply some filters based on the price, lowest price, okay, highest price, something like ratings, 4-star rating or something like that. So now what is this concept? You are loading mobiles, but out of the mobiles again you are applying the filters. So to see the mobiles information, in this case these values are mandatory. No, it's not mandatory. You are getting all the mobiles. Only thing is out of them you are filtering, but it's not like mandatory, right? But in this case, but first of all, to get the mobiles itself, the category value is really required or not? Yes, 100% required. Otherwise, how the backend application knows that what you are expecting? You got the right? So that means in this case, you can define the required value as a path variables. And on top of that, if you are applying any filters or any optional kind of data, you can go with the query parameters. That is how people will define in the REST services. Okay, so generally people will follow same approach in such case. Now, for example, in this case, can I define like this? Price equal to and brand equal to can we define like this now? Yes, yes. So in this case, if you given mobiles, all mobiles will become. So what is the meaning of this endpoint now? Tell me. This is loading what? All mobiles. And after that, this is filtering based on the price what you said. This is filtering, even out of that also filtering based on the brand value, brand name, Apple or Samsung, something like that. So that is how you have to understand. Okay. So in such case, now if I given same requirement with respect to laptops, I told you, so write a REST service, implement a functionality. So by default, I have to display all the laptops. Okay. All the laptops per page 100, all brands. Okay. Irrespective of internal memory, RAM size, whatever it is. But after that, if user selected any filter values, brand value, RAM size, memory size, something like that, based on that, the values, the results has to be displayed. So in such case, again, what we will do, how we are going to implement the REST service. So here, first thing is, what is the category? Laptop. So to see the all laptops, first of all, you should define always category value as a laptop or not. So in this case, if you define path variable as categories, and whenever you are sending request from the client, what is going to happen? All, if you are sending in the place of category laptop, so all the laptops will be displayed. Now after that, you started applying the filters. Applying the filter in the sense, think front end point of view. Think, and whenever we are discussing query parameters, think back-end developer point of view. Now, front-end people is displaying all the filters right side, and they are asking, okay, select price, filter your results, something like that, price, internal memory, external memory, reviews. Okay, so what and all, manufacturing year, something like that. They given a lot of filters. Now, user clicked on the brand, selected Samsung. Then what is happening? After categories, I mean, in the URL level, flipkart.com/laptop/ query mark, symbol, brand equal to Samsung brand. So that means all Samsung laptops is going to be comes or not? All Samsung laptops are. So in this case, laptops is a path variable, category value. In this case, brand is equal to Samsung. That is a query parameter. Why you defined it as a query parameter? Why can't be path variable? Who knows? He may select the brand, he may not select the brand, right? For example, when you open the laptop, when you open the Flipkart, when you are clicking on the mobiles, is it like always you are going to clicking on the brand? No, right? Sometimes I will click directly on the price. I have only 30,000 rupees and I would like to buy a mobile below 30,000. Any brand is fine. Then what filter you will select? Only price range you will select. You will not select the brand. After that, you will finalize. But first you selected only price. So that means there is no guarantee which value is going to come. So it might be optional. It may come, it may not come, but should be there. Those values are going to define as query parameters. You got the difference between path variables and query parameters? Okay, so now what I will do quickly, I'll just show you one small example with the combination of query parameters and path variables. So I'll give you requirement here only. Okay, so for example, as per our application, I'll give you requirement like this. Okay, so I think same requirement we can take, whatever we discussed yesterday. So if you want to implement this requirement, yeah, same requirement only. So what is the requirement here? It is getting users based on the city. So that means I clearly told you the values, so the results, the users information should get always based on a city value. Always based on a city value. That means always means all the time means mandatory or not. City value is mandatory or not. So that is how you have to understand the analysis. You have to understand the requirement. Okay. Please refer the words very clearly when you are getting any interview question also. A small word will change entire sentence meaning. You know that in our real life also, right? So that is what get users based on the city always. Okay. So that means always means all the time. So city should be presented. Okay, fine. Then you decided I can take city value as a path variable or query parameter. Query parameter. And inside that, I given couple of requirements. I given couple of statements also. In case based on the city is mandatory, but sometimes I would like to provide for the same service, for the same requirement point of view, if they are sending gender value, filter results based on the gender from that city. If they are not sending, display all the gender value. Display all the things. Okay, irrespective of gender, display everything. So that is what we taken yesterday, right? So that now in this case, for example, if I given, let me open the table. If I given only Hyderabad, I did not given any gender value. How many results I'll get? 3 we will get, right? 1, 2, 3 we will get. Okay. For example, after that I given gender equal to male. How many values I'll get? Yeah, only one value I'll get, that is second value. This is what Dilip@gmail.com I'll get. Now if I given female again, two values. If I given city, Bangalore, and I did not given any gender value, nothing I given, then what you will get? 4 records you may get, right? 4, yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only city. Then if I given again query parameter, I mean, because gender is a optional or not here? Gender is a optional. A client may send, may not send. But as part of your REST service implementation, the gender value has to be defined as a path variable or query parameter. Query parameter. So that is how we have to implement it. So that means in this case, in this requirement, how many concepts we are using? 2 concepts we are using. One is path variable, one is query parameter. So that's why please create a big table when you are practicing. Big table in the sense multiple columns. Like for example, if you take in the orders, city, gender, qualification. If you are adding lot of columns, then you can do lot of practice also. So if you are having here columns like qualification, so and so passed out here, age, the overall age 31, 25, something like that. So that you can get a lot of requirements here it is. Now, for example, from this city, I will give you one more requirement. For example, from the same city, I want people who completed the PG. So along with, I want, you have to implement a REST service, single REST service. If they are not provided anything, display all the users based on the city. If they are provided gender, display only based on gender belongs to that city. And in case, if you are giving one more option, I mean, if you want to add one more option called as qualification. Okay, now qualification is a value. So for example, now I selected PG, brand equal, gender equal to male, city equal to Hyderabad. Then what you have to display results based on the first city, where city had city equal to Hyderabad and qualification equal to PG and gender equal to whatever the values you are passing generally. So you have to write down a query like that. You have to write down a query like that. Or you have to write down custom find way methods and with under operator, all these things. Okay. So you just, if you are adding multiple columns, you will get a lot of ideas. But in this case, qualification and gender both are optional. So then if, for example, now user given only qualification, he did not given gender value, then you are going to display all gender female people and male people who belongs to that qualification from that city. You got the point? So that is how you have to practice when you are take multiple columns, no problem. Take minimum 15 columns, just take 10 to 15 columns. Okay, where you are seeing common data, Hyderabad, gender, qualifications, percentages, age column, okay, date of birth year, something like that, where it is. So I want to get people below less than, greater than 21 years. For example, assume you are having users information. You have to load users based on the age. You have to load users based on the age always. Then what is the value? What is the concept you will take here? Path variable. There is no concept of query parameters. I told you this time, age is mandatory. Okay, sometimes I may look for either female or male people who belongs to that age. Then, yeah, path variable as well as query parameter. May or may not. Gender value. So in such case, you have to define gender value as a query parameter. So like that, you just need to understand it. See, why I repeated these things day by day from last 3 days is nobody is answering these things in the interviews in a correct manner. No one, even real-time people also nowadays, like they are saying like real-time, but when you are asking them very clearly what is the difference between path variable and query parameters, how to define, where to define, at what scenarios you have to define, no one is answering properly. Okay, that means they don't have proper usage or proper guidelines as way to use, what to use. They know the path variable, curly braces, query parameters, okay, all these things. But at what time, where, in which scenario and all, no, they were not able to tell. So that's why I opened all these Flipkart websites and all. So this is what same thing or not. Whenever we are doing the things, category wise we are setting always mobiles, okay. And then whenever you are doing the filter operations, one query parameter is getting added or not. If you are adding one more filter, one more query parameter. If you remove filter, this query parameter will be deleted. And again, you will get the results only based on the brand. Right? So that's all. And you know, leave about freshers. There are people coming with 7 to 8 years of experience, and they are also not able to say when I'm asking something like anywhere else you observed path variables, anywhere else you observed query parameters in your real life. No one is saying, yes, we observed something like Instagram, Flipkart, Facebook, LinkedIn. These are all using path variables or not. What is that? LinkedIn.com/username. Instagram.com/. If I given Dilip Singh 1006, my profile I will see. If I given your ID, I can see your details, right? So what is that then? Every time a real value is replacing, we are getting different results. It's a path variable or not? So now, query parameters. In Flipkart, we are seeing when you selected brand, a query parameter added. When you selected internal storage, a query parameter is added. Now select few other things also, RAM size 16 GB, something like that will be added. So this is all real-time examples. So even in interviews also, when they are asking, don't hesitate. Okay, when they're asking about path variables, explain about the path variables. At the end, you can tell them yourself. So if you are taking Instagram, what we are using on daily basis, if I am giving Instagram.com/my user ID, my unique user ID, I can see my profile. If you given your mail ID, your user ID, then we can see your profile details. If I given my friend, I can see my friend details. So that means in this case, every time we are passing different values. So here we can consider this as a path variable. Like that, you can tell them directly. Don't worry about it. So don't feel like, okay, if I said this, he may feel. That is what the real time experience, that is what the answers dynamically a interview panel will expect. They will ask what is path variable. You just explain everything very clearly. At the end, just tell them if you are taking our Instagram IDs, because everyone will use Instagram IDs nowadays, even though they are senior people also. Or let's take LinkedIn also, professional websites. You just tell them if you take in the LinkedIn, whenever we entered linkedin.com/in/the user ID, I can see my details. If you enter your ID, we can see our details. So in this case here, the position is replacing with path variable concept. I can consider this as a path variable. Like that, you just explain them. Take a real-time website, whatever you are seeing here, no problem. Okay, I'm quickly writing this. Get users info based on the city and gender. Okay, now tell me what I have to define here. So I just read what we have to define. City is mandatory or not? Yes. So now second one. Request. Can I define one more here itself? Gender. No, right? So gender we are making as optional filter value. So that means then we have to define it as a request. Query parameter means annotation is request parameter. And then what is our request parameter name? Can I take like this? So do we need to define anything else? Yes, path variable also. One more annotation, path variable also. So this is what path variable name I'm directly giving as a method parameter name. Now is it done? The remaining you know that it's simply just for sending to the service and all. Now what are the concepts we used? Path variable as well as query parameter concepts we used. Path variable name is city, query parameter name is gender. Okay, let's start our application now. Yeah, it started now. Okay, so let's send the request now. Tell me what is the URL? Okay, until Flipkart we know /user/info/city. Now a client, a front end or anyone else sending request. Okay, so user slash info in city place, we have to give city value. So now tell me, can I give gender value mandatorily? That is not our requirement, right? It may present, it may not present. If I given Hyderabad 3 values, I have to get. If I given gender equal to male, 1 value. Maybe female, 2 values I have to get. If I am not given anything, total values, 3 values I have to get. 3 user information I have to get. Send it. So you got what? Something like 400 bad requests. So there is some meaning for this status codes, 400, 200, 505, 501, all these things. I will explain that in the next classes, upcoming classes. But observe here, what is this? Required parameter gender is not presented. So that means it is saying the parameter gender is missing. Equal to some value I will give. Now what happened? You got one object or not? Male. Okay, if you given female, 2 objects you got. But as per our requirement, if I am not given the gender, it has to display the 3 users information instead of the bad request. So that means in this case, let's send the request one more time. So in this case, expected result is all the users information from that city irrespective of gender, right? But why it is saying gender is missing? That means in Spring Framework, by default, okay, so by default, query parameter or request parameter, whatever we define as part of annotation, request parameter is required data. By default, it is a required data. So that means by default, whenever you define this annotation, request parameter annotation, what it is saying, by default, it is required. So that means that's why Spring MVC, first of all, whenever you are sending request, it is verifying with this gender, there is any query parameter available or not. Because by default, the request parameter, you define n number of request parameters. By default, it is a required data. Internally, MVC is enabled always. It should be presented. So if you want to, now I want to disable it. I may send it, I may not send it. I want to make it as an optional. So then Spring Framework provided one more annotation, sorry, not annotation, attribute as part of request parameter. This is what we are trying to make it as an optional, right? It may present, may not present. So then what you have to do here it is, what is this? Required. So by default, required equal to true. Now what we have to do? Required equal to false. So that means now if you return required equal to false, okay, now if I return required equal to false, so that means in this case, tell me, okay, so now in this case, gender is mandatory. No, right? So now let's see here first. Let's send the request, send it. What happened? You got successful response, but empty response. Why? See, when you are sending data from the front end, dynamically based on the city and gender, say gender may presented or may not presented. In your backend also, you have to implement that logic or not. So what? For example, if you see here, what is this value? Gender null. Why gender null? We are not send it. Default value in Java is gender. Sorry, default value for string is null. So in such case, you can write down like this. If gender is not equal to null, then all this. Else, you have to write down dynamic logic also or not. So else, in case if it is null, is it, why you have to send the gender? It's a get users by the city only. Do you have any predefined method? Okay, we don't have anything. We will create get users by city. That's all. Now create this method inside the service class. Okay, save it, create an IMPL class. Add an implemented method because we take an interface also in this project. Okay, now what you have to write down here? User management repository dot files. That's all. Find by city, and you are passing that city value. Okay, it's a custom method or not? So we have to create again inside the interface. Yes, create method find by in the user management repository. Return type is same thing. Save all changes. Okay, so you know all these things. Now tell me, you are going to get expected result or not? Yeah, here. Now, okay, so see here now, let me send the request now. Now I'm sending only Hyderabad. What will happen now? 3 users information we will see, male and female data we will see now. You got 1, 2, 5. I mean, female, male, male. So that means all genders are coming or not. I mean, all the users are coming or not. Now you are looking for only female people. Now you are looking for only female people. Then if it is front end point of view, assume this is a front end page as a Flipkart or maybe whatever it is. Now here you have a filter something like gender male and female. Now you clicked on the female button. Okay, that means front end people they will add immediately female, sorry, gender equal to, once you selected that checkbox, a value will be added like this, female, and once you clicked on the apply filters, then a call is going back to the backend application to our REST service. This time we are supporting gender or not? Yes, our REST service is supporting gender. Now see how many values you got? Only 1, 2. Only female people data you got. Now if you given male, you got only male information. If you remove this, all information. All female and male you are getting. So now tell me, is it whatever you are seeing brand equal to Apple in your Flipkart, right side, whatever the filters you are seeing, now you realize how you are seeing the filter values always in the websites. Now you are getting or not? So assume that is what I told you. So take a requirement in your project also, add lot of qualification is one column, age one column, DOB year, date of birth year as a one column, something like that. Add so that you can define load all users in case age presented based on the age. In case qualification, you have to implement only one REST service, but it has to give flexibility for all the filters. Then what you will do in the annotation level, everything you will make it as a required equal to false. By default false. That means by default optional. If presented, then you have to write down these logics. Generally, now it's all your core Java skills. Generally, if you are not sending means it will come as a null value. So if it is not null, call this method. If it is null, call this method. Something like that, you have to write down your core Java knowledge. But ultimately, you are supporting everything via only one REST service. Like that, you can define that. So is it clear now? Path variables versus query parameters. How to use, where to use. Okay, let me show you some online REST APIs we will open. Even I already shown you the real websites itself. Flipkart, Amazon, all these things. Okay, if you see here, Now, what you can understand from this page equal to 2. So sometimes assume you don't have page number. You have to display all the users like that. Or if you want to display page number 2, so single user. What is this 2? Single user based on the what? User ID. You can understand this 2 as a user ID or not. Is it a path variable or query parameter? Where query? Where is question mark symbol? Path variable, right? Single user. I mean, anyway, again, 23 they passed. There is no user with 23 ID. So what is this API unknown users? So why you can't see anything in the path variable or query parameters in this case? Because it's a create operation. Create operations level, will you have any identifiers? No. Let's go to the delete. So what is the delete? What is this 2? Path variable. Why? Yes, you are doing the delete operation based on resource identifier called as user ID. User ID value is 2. So now you are writing a service. User ID is always mandatory or not in this case? To delete a user account, we need always a unique user ID or not? So that's why you taken always the value should be presented always as a path variable. Even this is not that much good, but at least I'll do pet API. Something is there. I think Swagger. I think we discussed also already Swagger. Okay, so see here, there is couple of examples available. Post. This is uploading an image. Generally, when you will upload, so the meaning of see here in this post also they taken path variable as a pet ID. Why they taken post as well as path variable? The requirement is as what? Uploading an image. When you will upload the image, when your user account is, for example, assume your Instagram is there. Without Instagram account, will you upload your photos in Instagram? No, right? First, what you will do? You will create your account. Then onwards, you are starting uploading your images, your photos, your profile photos, or whatever it is. So that means when you are uploading your image, is it reflecting only your account point of view, or is it reflecting in everyone's accounts? Only your account. So that means it is uploading only for that user ID, that unique user ID. So that is what the meaning of pet ID as a path variable, even though it is post. But why they taken as post? You are uploading a new image. That means a new record is getting created in the table level or not? Where image will be stored in the database level as a new record. So something is getting created newly or not? So that is how. Post. What is this? Again, pet. What is this? Add a new pet to the store. Add a new pet to the store. What is the meaning of adding a new pet? By the time, as of now, at the time, that pet details available in our database it's a new pet. You brought somewhere else, or maybe it's a new pet. You are trying to add first time those details to your application. So that's why when there is no query parameters, there is no path variables. Now, so what is this find by? Pet ID. So you have to get unique pet IDs you given so and so something like that, and based on that you are getting the details. Delete pet ID. I will show you query parameters where it is available. Path variable only. Okay, so you just explore it. I already shown you that also. Yeah, here you have query parameter, user login. But is it good to send password at the URL level? No, right? So I don't know why these guys are giving. See. Okay, so anyway, you know that, and I shown you already flipped out all this point of view also how things are happening. Just practice, and let's move to the next topic. It's very small topic, but we taken 3 to 4 days to understand. But now you realize it, right? By showing the real REST services also, what is available on the internet and everywhere. So same thing. Okay, let's move to the next topic. Logging, YAML file, builder, design pattern. These are all I'll complete in one later. Let's go with the flow. Okay, so the next topic here it is. What can I take? Status codes, headers, status codes. Okay, so let's take this. Very important, this one also. HTTP status codes in REST API implementation. Okay. So see here, let's say this is also important one only in interview point of view also. HTTP status codes or response status codes, people will call it as different ways. Response status codes in with respect to REST API implementation. Okay, so generally, if we taken the HTTP status codes and response codes, okay, this is a generic concept. This is a generic concept according to the HTTP protocol. According to the HTTP protocol web applications. So that means the response codes or HTTP status codes, what we are going to discuss right now, is it related 100% to the REST API? No, it's already there. But as part of REST API, how we are using these things, that is what the concept now. But first thing is, what is HTTP codes? Sorry, what is HTTP status code or response status code? Anyone of you know? Okay. So, sorry. Okay. So, for example, when you started your applications, okay, I will show you right now. What is this 200 okay you're seeing? Most of the times 200 okay are not here. Right? What is this 200? Is a status code. Okay, for example, I given orders/info Hyderabad. So do you have kind of URL in our project? No. Then what you will get here? 404. Okay, I think I stopped my application. Okay, anyway, let me bring up. So generally what you will get? 404 you will get. Yeah, it started. Let's send now. What is this? 404 not found. So in earlier you see 200. Now you saw 404 not found. Okay, so similarly, I will do one more thing also. Tell me in this case, gender value going as what? Gender value going as what? If it is users info, I'm not passing gender, but gender value going as null value to the backend. Assume if you written a bad code in the REST service implementation on null, if you are doing any operations, what you will get? Null pointer exception. So in this case, now I will get null pointer exception or not. So that means you are going to see successful response. No, right? So let me send the request. Now what is the error code? 500 internal server error, right? So there is a mistake in the code or whatever it is. Intentionally I made that. But you see, I mean, my point here it is, we are seeing in different cases, different status codes. Sometimes 200, sometimes 404, sometimes 401, sometimes 204, sometimes 505, 501. So what are all these? What are all these? 404, 500, 200, 201, 204. So you are going to have a lot of status codes like this. But what is the purpose of all these things? And tell me one more point from these experiments what we did right now. the status codes, what you are seeing like 200, 500, 404, all these things, as part of request or response? Yes, always as part of the response. So that's why the HTTP status codes are calling as response status codes. So what is the generic concept of this HTTP status codes or response status codes? In every web application implementation, in any programming language, wherever you are creating web applications, okay, wherever it is, Python, .NET, wherever we are creating web applications, what is the point of response status codes here? It is just simplify the meaning, response plus status plus code. So that means the point here it is, okay, I'm the person, I sent a request, okay, I sent a request to server application. Let's do one thing in a simple human life point of view. For example, I'm the person and I assigned a task to some student. Now I told him, okay, if everything goes fine, give me a message like okay. If something goes bad, I mean based on the task, whatever I assigned, okay, give me something like failed or something like that. So that means here you are expecting what back as when you are giving a task. That means you are sending a request to the opposite person. So then as a response, what you are expecting? There are different scenarios. It may fail, it may success, it may be some other issue, whatever it is, network issue, whatever it is. So, but at the same time, you are looking for the status of the request or not. Status of the request. What is the meaning of status of the request? Now the request went into the server application or request went into the opposite person. Now he started working on that. You are waiting for his status. So you told like, let's take your time until evening, give me the status. But I need by end of the day. Something like that. So that means now you given a request to the opposite person. He started working on that. And after 2-3 hours, he given a response back to you. Okay, everything is good, working as expected. So when you are sending request, you are looking for the response. You are looking for the response. But at the same time, the response is always successful response you are going to see. You are going to see always successful response. Is it possible in our human life? There might be so many problems in between. For example, assume this is the user 1 or this is the client 1, user 1, user 2. Now assume, now you given some information to user 2 and asking you are requested another user by passing some information to do so and so activity. Okay. Now user 2 started working on that. Assume user 2 identified user 1 not provided all required information. User 1 not provided all required information. So that means in this case, whose mistake it is? User 1 or user 2? Obviously user 1 mistake. Mistake in the sense problem from which side? User 1 side or user 2 side? User 1 side. Because user 2 knows that how to do that. But user 1 not sent all the information. I requested 5 mandatory documents from your side. But unnecessarily you sent only 3. But I need remaining 2 also. So that means the data pending from requester side. Requester side. That means user 1 side. So in this case, problem from whose side? User 1 side or user 2 side? Requester user 1 side, right? Okay, that is one scenario. So in this case, the problem from user 1 side. So the activity is going to be completed in this case. The overall activity is going to be completed? No. Because the problem from user 1. Now fine. Now after in some other scenarios. For example, user 1 sent all the information, but user 2 unable to process data or unable to do it. Then problem from whose side? User 1 is clear. User 1 given all the information, but user 2 is not able to do anything. So in this case, problem from whose side? Who are not able to perform the task? User 2. The reason is this time who? User 2. In earlier case, reason is user 1. Sometimes problem from the user 1 side, sometimes problem from the user 2. Or sometimes user started, now user 2 started working on that. Okay, working on the task. After 1 hour of work, in between, he got some problem. In between, he got some problem. So that means after half of the work is completed, he faced some problem. It may be, I'm just telling in a generic format. Some problem came for the user 2. Then also the task is completed. No. So that means problem from whose side again? In this case, user 2 again. So that means in our real life, however we are having, whenever we are assigning a task, whenever we are visiting any government offices, or wherever you are going to the bank offices and all, they will give you a list of documents. This is all you have to get it. If you are not missing, what they will do? They will tell you, these are all missing. I cannot process your request. You given everything to them. After that, now banking application or the respective officials started processing your request or your application. So in between, they found you are underage, something like that. First day you went with 17 years age, you went and submitted an application. Assume, but it is 18 years they are looking for. Then in between what they are doing, they are cross-checking your data. Then they identified as age is underage. So then they will tell you, we cannot process your request because age is, your documents wise everything you submitted, but age wise you are not good. Now similarly, second scenario, for example, age is over the age. Then also they will reject. Okay, now client wise, user one wise, everything is good. But user two is no, okay, everything is good, let me process it. Now they started entering their details into some so and so application point of view or something like that. Now they got some network issue. Then what they will tell you? They are going to tell you like, hey man, it is your problem. What they will accept? What they will tell you? Yeah, your data is good, but problem from our side, we are unable to do it. Let's wait for some time. I'll complete it. So that means in real time scenarios, sometimes problem from your side, problems from their side. So we don't know problem from which side when you are working for any task. So in this case also, generally why we will send the request to server application, client is going to send request to the server application. Why client sending? To get the data, to execute some task, to get the response. Some task has to be completed. Okay, so in this case, a front-end application is displaying something like principal amount loan. Assume principal amount, the rate of interest, the number of years, something like that. And they given a button below, calculate EMI. So you are looking for so-and-so amount. If you are applying the loan for the so-and-so rate of interest for so-and-so years, what is the EMI value? So then what will happen? These three details is going to the server application or not? So then assume server application, they are doing some PQR by 100, all these calculations, and they are giving you per month you are going to get 40,000 rupees EMI, 50,000 rupees EMI based on the real data. So in this case, why are you sending request? To get some response. Something has to be executed at server side, and finally you have to see some results. To finish a task, to get data, to do some work. Alright. So now whenever in a web application point of view, whenever client sending a request, server reaching to the server. Now server is processing the request. When server is giving response back to you, okay, server is attaching a status code also. Whenever it is giving either it is a good response, bad response, error response, whatever response it is, to uniquely identify the error belongs to which problem. I mean, because of which problem the response you got. Now 200, okay, you can see in every cases. 200, you are seeing the status code, right? 200, okay. That means server is saying, I received your request, I processed your request, everything is good. There is no problem from your side and my side. Okay. So I'm giving you the successful response. So and along with that, every time a server application is adding a status code called as 200 okay. That means it is saying 200 okay in the sense your side good, my side good, logic wise everything is good. Everything is executed as expected. You got the results and I'm giving it to you, the response. 200 okay. Okay, that is what it is saying. Server is saying okay, everything is good. Now, sometimes you saw 404 not found. What not found? Why you got that error? You are sending a URL something like /orders. But are we really have that service in our project as of now? There is no slash orders in our REST services. Then what is happened in this case? In a common sense, think it. You sent a request, Flipkart, slash orders. But as of now, we are not implemented any orders endpoint. We are not implemented any. Now the request reached to from client to server or not? Now what server is doing? What internally Spring Web application will do internally? Handler mapping concept. For example, we discussed handler mapping. Then what it will verify? The request came for get method. The URI pattern is slash orders. Then it will verify in the handler mapping slash orders is available or not with get mapping. Do we have? No. Then server is saying giving response back to us. Is it a successful response or error response? Error response you are seeing, lot of error you see, right? And server immediately saying, it's not my problem, it's your problem. Okay, 404 is representing not found. What not found in this case? The URI path is not found. The URI path is not found. Now server application is, the request reached to the server or not? Reached. But server is trying to looking for the URI existed or not. Is it existed? No. If it is existed, then it will start executing the controller method logic. Whatever we written, the method service repository, it will execute and it will give you 200. Okay. But here URI is matching, not matching. Then it is now server telling to the client application, I got your request fine, but I don't find the URI pattern slash orders. Like that, it is giving response, error response to you, and it is giving a status code called as 404 not found. So that means in this case, for every response, whether it is a request, whether it is a good response, bad response, error response, whatever response it is, whatever the acknowledgement you are getting from the server side to client side as part of the response, every different errors, different responses will have different status codes. That is how you have to. Okay, that is why we are having a concept called as response status codes and all. Now, I shown you one more status code, one more problem. What is it is? What is the 500 internal server error? Why you got this time 500 internal server error? What is the problem this side? This time? Is it problem from client side? No. Is it problem from server side? Yes. What problem? Logic problem. So this time URI problem? URI found or not? So 404 it is going to send? No, because URI found. That's why it started executing the logic. But as part of logic, what happened? You are not written proper logic. As a developer, you are not written null check, something like that. Some arithmetic exception, whatever it is. While executing the logic, you got some exception, null pointer exception or array index out of bounds exception, whatever it is. Then problem from whose side? Client side or server side? Server side. Now server telling to the client, okay, I am getting some problem from my side only. Okay, I am unable to process your request because problem from my side, because the logic what written in the server side application is bad logic by the developer. Something like that, it is acknowledging to the client and it is giving a response status code as 500. And what is the meaning of 500? Internal server error. So see how clearly it is saying. It's internal error to the server. In earlier case, when you are sending requests, something like orders, or if you given any spelling mistakes also, what you are going to get? Not found. So what you are not found? 404 not found. See, the requested resource could not be found. It's not found. 404 not found. No static resource, something like this, orders and all. That is what it is saying. So this time URI is not matching, not found. That's why 404. But in the case of this one now, URI is matching. Logic is trying to execute, but somehow you got some arithmetic exception or null pointer exception. Some runtime exception you got. So problem from whose side this time? Client is clear. Client sent all the information as expected. URI is good, port number, everything is good. But server is unable to process the request because of the logic what we implemented. Okay, so then server is saying, yes, it is problem from my side. 500 status code it is sending. Then as a client you will verify, okay, 500, okay, it's problem from problem is not from my end, problem from the server side only, like the client will understand. Now, for example, server sent 404 to you. Now, what you will understand at that scenario? Oh, server sent 404. So that means problem from whose side? Server is saying problem from your side, 404. Now, I will show you one more thing. If I remove this, what will happen again? Okay, let me do one thing. Okay, so here, if I remove this, what is the problem? Do you have any problem with this? I removed required equal to false. That means required equal to true now. So that means query parameter is always mandatory or not, right? So if I'm sending a request like this as it is now, are you going to see the response? You are going to see the response now? Successful response? No, right? Why? The query parameter gender is mandatory, but you are not sending. Okay, send it. Then what server is saying? In this case, what is the status code? 400. So that means and what is the 400 representing? Bad request. So that means server telling to and assume you made gender as a mandatory. Actually, as per your requirement, gender is mandatory. You made it as mandatory in your REST service. Your REST service is good, but client is not sending gender query parameter. Then whose problem? You clearly told to the client, gender is presented. Gender should be presented as a query parameter, but client not sending. Then whose problem it is? Client problem. Then what server is saying to the client now? Now server is sending this message. Hey, I verified your URI, but something is missing. Whatever required field gender is there, it is missing. So that's why I'm unable to process your request. I'm not accepting your request because your request is a bad request. Bad request in the sense you are not sending details as expected. You are not sending all the required details. So then it is saying like your request is a bad request. If request is good request, then only I will process your request. So it is giving what status code now? 400 bad request. And it is saying the reason also. Why? Gender is not presented. So that's why your request is a bad request. That is what, right? When you are going to any government offices are also, they will verify and they will tell you so and so is missing. I cannot take your application. That's what I told you. It's all about real-time scenarios only. In our programming is also what we will do. When you are going to any official government offices or banks or wherever it is, don't fill one or two required fields. Don't fill your contact number. Is they are going to take your application? They will ask you, why are you not written the mobile number? It's mandatory. Like that, they will give it back. Your application, they are giving it back. Why? They are saying like something is missing. The required information is missing. Now you written mobile number and you given it to them. Then what they will do? Okay, now everything is good. Let me process from my side. Now in this case, that's what it is saying. Bad request. So now problem from whose side? Server side or client side? Yes, client side. So now client has to correct his mistake. Now client corrected his mistake. Now you got the response or not? Right? Now that is how in different scenarios, you don't know, there are a lot of scenarios will be available and lot of status codes will be available. We will see one by one in the sense, there are some categories available, 5 categories. We will discuss. Let me show you right away. Okay, so if you see here, HTTP response. So the status codes are always coming as part of the response only. That's why I always calling as response status codes. One person told me, not one person, yeah, 1 or 2 persons told me, we can define status codes in while we are sending request also. Is it correct? Status code. Status itself representing the meaning, man. So what is the meaning of status? In English meaning, in a simple or real life. Hey, what is the status of the task? What is the status of your assignment? I'm asking like this. What is the status of your assignment? That means I'm looking for your response. Status, you have to tell me, sir, it is completed half. It is completed 50%. It is completed 100%. That is what? Status. Status means always response, right? Status means always a response. So status codes are always part of response body level only. It's not like while you are sending request, I will send 400 to the server. No, there is no that kind of concept. So that's why I see everywhere clearly response status codes. Okay, so these are all 5 you have. We will discuss tomorrow. I don't want to discuss right now. And you don't need to worry about all these status codes. I will tell you that one also. Let me show you in a tabular format. 5 categories we will discuss tomorrow. What and all, everything clearly I will discuss. But today, high level, just see here. Informational status codes, successful status codes, redirection, client error, server error. We will discuss each and everything tomorrow. 200 okay. Somewhere you saw multiple times. What is the meaning of 200? Okay, 201 created, 202 accepted. So we will, if you see here, how many status codes we have? So many we have, right? But don't worry, you don't need to remember everything. There are around 7 to 8 status codes available, which are being used most of the times in our real-time programming. It's not like everything will be used in our real-time projects. Whatever you can see here, it is. Okay. Yeah, until 500 series only we have to consider. Yeah, we will see tomorrow. 200, okay, 201 created. When, as part of REST services, what we have to follow, what are the guidelines and all, we will try to discuss in next class. But I'll try to finish it by tomorrow. It's a small topic only. You got your understanding now what we are going to do tomorrow. If you got a good response, some status code. Now, for example, a small example I'll give you and I'll leave it. For example, assume a requirement is like this. Create user accounts. Okay, create user accounts is a requirement with the information of name, email, password, gender, contact, okay, etc. Information you have assumed. Now, in this case, I told you, please implement a REST service. What you will do? What is your idea immediately? Create user account. Create representing what? Post. So then you will write down post mapping method. And immediately what you will create? Post method you said. Then what you have to prepare immediately? Yeah, URI. Okay, URI you will define. Okay, something like slash user slash create something like that. Okay, next. Yes, that's what. Request body class. Yes, request body we will define. That means we will define a Pojo class based on what? JSON payload. Assume you by default JSON. Then you define a JSON payload and you return Pojo class. Anything else you are going to do? After now you are trying to implement the logic. You are trying to implement the logic like at the rate post mapping URI, request body, so and so user details class. Then you are sending this information to service class, service to repository, save method, you called on the repository. Finally, this is already be implemented. This is what only, right? What is this? Same thing only. I'm asking same question. So in this case, on successful user creation, what is the response you are seeing always? On successfully user is created. What you are seeing? 200. Okay, right? But as per REST API guidelines says, when a new resource is created, when a new resource, what is the meaning of resource here again? I already told you. When a new resource is created successfully, we have to send status code as 201 created. So this is a guidelines. By default, what you are getting? By default, you are seeing like user account created successfully, but status code you are seeing as 200. Okay. This is a default status code generally for every request. But as per REST API guidance says, when you are creating, your REST service is creating a new resource successfully, then what is the status code you have to return? 201 created. So what is the point of resource created here? New resource, any new record. Yes, exactly. So it resource might be only user. Depends on the scenario. Resource is nothing but a product. You are adding a new product details. You are adding a new order details. You are adding new user details. You are adding new animal details. So resource means an object. An object. And something is being newly created. As of now, that information is not available in database. Now user created his account. Now user created his account. So that means a new resource. For example, assume you guys don't have LinkedIn account as of now. Now you decided to create LinkedIn account. So in this case, a new resource is created in the LinkedIn database server or not? when you created your account. Clicking on the sign up, everything is good. So in such case, the status code has to send from server to client. Now server is telling to the client, instead of 200, okay, server is saying your request is completed successfully, as well as the resource is created successfully. There is a scenario also where resource may not be created, right? For example, assume by the time your email ID is already existed, you forgot, you created 2 years back LinkedIn account, and you thought like you are not using that email ID, use it today. What they will tell you? Your data is good, but then when they are verifying into the database level, this email ID is already in use. So that might be different real-time scenarios, right? So then they are going to give 201 created. Your account is created really in this case? No, because your email is already existed. 3 years back you created, you forgot, but today you are using same one again. So they are saying like not created. I mean, user account is already, email ID is already existed. So your user account created in this current moment? No. So then they are going to return 201 created? No, right? So they are going to create with some other state. They are going to give, now server will tell you user account is already existed and they are going to give some other status code. But user account is created, then what is the status code? 201 created. Like that you have to, client will inform to the, server will inform to the client, yes, your request is executed successfully and a new resource is also created. 100% is created or not? When 100% is created, then you have to return 201 created. Like that, you are going to have a couple of status codes. You have to return back from server to client level. Depends on your scenario, depends on the real-time situation. What your code is making a decision, based on the decision, you have to use the status codes. Okay. So we will discuss very clearly tomorrow, one by one. The 5 categories we have: informational one, redirectional one, server side errors, client side errors, all these things. We will discuss one by one tomorrow and we will finish it tomorrow. It's a very small concept. But one more thing. So in this case, for example, assume I would like to define 201 created sending back to the client application. Executed successfully, but I have to send status code 201 created to the client application. So in this case, what I have to do? Some logic changes we have to do. That is also I'll explain tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow, Sunday in the sense, Balakrishna, I know. It's all Monday then. Okay. So there is no class tomorrow, Monday. I mean, next class. It's better to use next class. So you can, after 2-3 classes or maybe 4-5 classes, I will show you how to access the third-party REST services into our Spring Boot applications. We are creating Spring Boot applications, right? Now we have to call other application REST service into our application. Now Angular is calling Spring Boot REST service. Similarly, Spring Boot can call another. For example, this example, whatever you can see here, it is a REST service, right? So we will integrate this REST service from our Spring Boot application. I'll explain that also. So you have to become good knowledge with REST services. You observing or not? I'm spending a lot of time in the REST services. Very clearly, this is what your ultimate goal once you are joining into any real-time project. Okay, so please concentrate. I will help you as much as possible by the time of training completed. Okay, let's connect on Monday.